Hello, I'm here this morning with Stan Davis. Looking forward to our conversation for the Tungo Wisdom Virtual Summit discussions on community. Welcome, Stan.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is very exciting.
Great. So tell me, Stan, where in the world are you?
Oh, well, I am in the world from, I'm in Napa, California right now. My wife's family purchased a vineyard out here 20 years ago, and we moved out here 10 years ago, but I feel completely out of my element and misplaced because I'm a fifth generation Coloradan, born on the western slope of Colorado, full-on redneck cowboy miner rancher kid, and so I kind of feel out of place. The only really thing that makes me feel grounded here is the water, all the water, and the fact that it's an agricultural community. But it's beautiful. The weather's great here, and yeah. But if I'm from Colorado, that's my roots.
Excellent. And are there any other cultural places or cultures that are significant to you?
Yeah, I had huge grounding experience, a couple of grounding experiences in Thailand. Um, but also I've had grounding experiences with the Navajo people and the Navajo tribe, and the Great Navajo Reservation, the Great Navajo Nations in Northeast Arizona, in the Four Corners area. Um, and then I've had some kind of groundbreaking experiences and real cultural ties to some of the northern tribes in North America too, some southern Canadian, northern United States tribes as well. So kind of that's where I kind of most feel at home.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so, Stan, you are not an Argentine tango dancer.
I am not. But I love dance. I know that.
Great. So I've asked you here because you are a social emotional intelligence expert, and you've been a huge influence in my life, and you've helped me see things and work with things in really profound ways. And so I would love for you to tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about maybe your dance experience,
Okay.
as well as, a little bit about SEI.
Okay. Well, my experience with dance was I always just loved to move. I just never sat still. And the irony of a guy who loved to dance, being raised in the Baptist church, and dance was, it was like Footloose in my house. We weren't supposed to dance, but I loved to dance. And we would go to the Grange Hall on Saturday night, and so I learned how to two-step with my mom and waltz with my mom, and usually to kind of a bluegrass waltz band. Just the shivers I get thinking back about, the Morelli brothers, one on a banjo and a guitar, and the other on a fiddle. Just unbelievable stuff. In the school dances, every school dance, but really there was a place across the highway from us that was called the Rockview Lounge, and nobody ever called it the Rockview Lounge. It was called the Barn because it was two chicken barns where they used to slaughter chickens, and they shoved them together and they cut holes in the wall, and not a drop of insulation, not anything, and they would, Friday, Saturday night, fire up some local bands, and that's where I learned how to country swing dance. And I never thought like, wow, what a cool thing to learn. But it was such a cool thing to learn, such warm memories from that. And, also being in Colorado, I spent a lot of time there was a time in my late teens and through my 20s where I was probably seeing 3 to 4 shows a week. Musical shows. And when the joke was at Red Rocks, I always got there early, and if the friends couldn't find us, like in the front row center, you're gonna see this big guy, he's bouncing up and down. If push comes to shove, that's where we'll be. So I was the big guy in the front row at Red Rocks, bouncing up and down. So, uh, still with music, I just can't sit still. I don't know what it is, but I tap into it and I feel better because I do it. That's all I know. And I'm assuming that's what tango is about, you know, at the end of the day, right?
At the end of the day, that's right. We just want to go in there and move our bodies, feel something, and have a good time.
Yeah. So yeah, so being raised in Colorado from really unsophisticated folks, I got an opportunity when I went to the Navy and broke my back to get out of the Navy and go to college. And I kind of always been a teacher in natural teaching positions. When I was running restaurants, I became a teacher. When I was in the military, I became a training officer, and so teaching kind of seemed like a natural path. And hey, it helped keep me in poverty for a few more years. You know, living in poverty, you're always in poverty. So I taught for a few years, taught at-risk youth. When I just really figured out, like, I wanted to be a high relationship teacher, but I was just giving too much of myself away day in and day out. So I had to find a way to walk that line, and then I got exposed to social emotional intelligence, and it was a landmark event in my life. It was a day that I really started taking, not control in kind of a bad way, but taking control of my side of my relationships. And so what SEI does is, number one, it's a non-therapeutic model. And this is about skill development. This is about giving you the skills to have a relationship with yourself, with others, and your environment. How you have a clean relationship that is supportive if you want it to be. But it does, at the end of the day, you're not causing damage. So, what I can really say in my relationships is clean up my relationships, because I really want my side of the equation to stay clean and clear. And I'm imperfect. SEI is a practice, teaching is a practice, law is a practice, medicine is a practice, because you can never be perfect. There's in tango, there's probably never a 10.0 score, because it's a practice, and so you remember, just because I have expertise in SEI, the more I get involved with somebody emotionally and ideologically, the harder those relationships are to manage. So that's kind of my experience where I raised kind of with dance, my deep relationship with dance, and where I am with SEI. So, and we work with a lot of different cultures. We initially was just in the education world. We broke into athletics. We work with NFL, NBA athletes. We work with NCAA. We also work with corporate groups. We also work with some of the native groups that I mentioned. They're in a really interesting situation in that they're trying to heal historical trauma. And we're trying to help them patch that. And we're seeing real headway, and it's not us, it's their heart leading the way. We're just giving them the skills to, once they get back to their traditional ways, they know how to heal themselves. We're just giving them the skills to get there.
So within that, the historical trauma is there, and that kind of, shatters communities.
It does.
So what are some of the things that you do to bring that cohesion back together? And I'm asking this question because there's some communities, tango communities, that have organically kind of grown, and they really are supportive of each other. There's a lot of that, so that there's this large amount of support that is occurring. And in some smaller communities, there's not. There's been a shattering, and it has hard feelings on either side of the split. And so it's harder, some people have said, and I would say that this is probably true, to repair a community than it is to build one. So how would you go about, like, could you speak to that process, or some of the
Yeah.
that we could do as an individual to help that process?
Yeah. And for, I'll kind of take that in two layers. And the first layer is kind of from the 60,000 feet. When you look at a community, what we know is that norms are more important than rules and those kinds of things. So rules and policy. So we know that. We also know that in Tongo and all communities, like you look at all the reformation that's happened through religion throughout the years, Luther splitting off from the church and the Franciscans splitting off, it's very, very typical. And you can bring it back, you can control it, but you have to understand that number one, change is going to happen. Part of the danger I think that we're seeing in the United States right now is we want to make America great again, but we're not going back. And that can be, there's a real dark side to longing for the past. There's a dark side there because that past wasn't good for everybody. Some people weren't there, and this is a problem we've dealt with these real groovy work communities like New Belgium Brewery is just a great example. What a great company to work for. And you have this old guy going, well, it was so cool here 10 or 15 years ago. Like, well, if you want to go back there, we're going to get rid of 70% of the people in the room. Who are you going to get rid of? So really, there's two parts here. If you value something, you protect it. So that's where policy and rules have a really, really good structure, but you also need the structure of a really good, clear mission and vision. You need a really good, clear core values. And then you have to ask yourself, are we living within those core values? And organizations are going to grow or they're going to die. It's going to live or it's going to die, one of the two. And the ironic part down at the ground level now is that we fight the most with those that we love and are closest to. So as soon as something becomes a community, there's a dark side to that. We get to know them better, and there's some things that we see in them that we don't like because they're things that we don't like in ourselves. And so the hardest relationships to manage are those that are people who are close to you. And so to understand that, that's when we have to use our skills the most. So that's where if you value the community at 60,000 feet, you want to make sure your mission and vision, your core values are tight, because you want to live within those norms. You want to make sure, though, your norms and your skills really help support the culture as well. And doing some background, I kind of looked at some Tongo communities that have split. It was like this, one community is kind of more traditional, they want to stay traditional, and one wants to kind of, a little bit more free form. And that's a classic story. It's just a classic story that once we get to know each other better, we kind of push each other apart. And it's all over norms. We're talking about the norms and the etiquette of a dance. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what's kind of causing this split. So what we say is, you have to have really good, clear communication about that. What does that mean? If we have two groups kind of wanting to take it in two directions, does that mean we split off? Or is this our opportunity for growth? And I always look at those kinds of things. Tension, stress, a disability of some sort is an opportunity for growth. But you have to have the courage to have the discussion. What happens if we split off and we start doing it? And what's wrong with doing both? Isn't a more inclusive community mean that, hey, we're going to have a traditional tango from 7:30 to 9, and we're going to have new wave tango from 9 to 10:30? And if you want to go to the first one, great. If you want to go to both, great. If you want to go to the second one, great. But if you value the community, then you put structures in place that support that. Communication is a structure that lives inside the community itself. You know, rules and policy are one thing, but norms are stronger than policy. So you want to get there through just good conversation. And really good conversation to us means that, one, you listen to understand. Number two, you ask questions to look for clarity. Most Americans, especially, respond to or they listen to respond. So that means they're really not listening. They're formulating opinion because the brain can't do two things. It's formulating opinion as you're speaking, so it means they're really not listening. So to sit and really stay focused and listen to understand is a big, big deal. Then the next one is to, what you don't understand, ask questions. I'm looking for clarity. And then the last thing is demystify. So you listen to understand, clarify, and demystify. Maybe it's time to look at what are other clubs doing that are more successful in this. Have other groups in general, have those other religious organizations, what have they done to bring themselves back together instead of a reformation that splits the community? And maybe the answer is splitting the community. You know, I don't know the answer to that, but basically at the end of the day, by using skills and having the courage to step in to have hard conversations, but we as humans, and especially Americans, you know, we don't step into hard conversations real easy. So protecting the community essentially is the ability and the skills to have hard conversations with each other.
And, you know, I would say with that, you know, tango at its essence, at least, you know, in context, it's a social dance. You know, we're coming together to dance and be together, and it doesn't exist unless we're together.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's a really important thing what you just said, is that we have to value the community itself, regardless of what section is over here and what section is over here, but that the community and tango is what we want to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And tango and the community will change, period. You know, even if like you have a strong attachment to holding the community together, exactly like it was when you joined in 1989 and then you die in 2020, it changed in that time period, and it's going to change after you're gone. That's what nature changes. You know, that's really the only constant that we have. And that's part of that demystify thing, is to get rid of that concept that, yeah, something's frozen in time. I get and understand that. I mean, I saw it in the bluegrass community. You know, the bluegrass community has this thing like, if it's not, you know, nothing's plugged in and there's only one microphone, you know, that's like the 1930s, 1940s. That's like one little tiny slice of history. And so, you know, what they've done to protect bluegrass is bluegrass is this, and anything that goes from that is called newgrass. So you can see how they're using language to define something new that came out of this beautiful thing. You know, if you choose to be, you know, I kind of think people sometimes choose to be snotty about that and go, well, you know, I'm a purist bluegrass, and it's one microphone, and like, okay, that's cool. And then there's these newgrass people that, you know, are doing some great stuff too. And it doesn't mean one is more talented than the other. It just means it's different. It just means that there's beauty in that diversity itself too. But to not name it, boy, that's now you're controlling language, and that's what healthy communities do. They control language.
We certainly have that in tango, where there are purists, you know, that want things a certain way. And they don't want to change, and that's fine. But I've certainly come across organizers, you know, or teachers that don't want to change either, you know. So how do you create an environment where it fosters change and growth, right? When it's like just in a class and you want students to grow and learn, or you're going to a social dance and no one's really progressing their dance, no one's growing, you know, and that gets painful.
Yeah.
when no one's growing and their dance just stays at the same level,
Right.
it physically can be painful. So what are some tools to help foster that growth without everybody having to agree upon something?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think that's like, you can do things structurally. You can have a division within a division. You can have a group within a group that allows for change, because change will happen, period. And then to just name it, whatever it is, it's Tango A. And in here, can we make the agreement that this is how we're going to behave? This is how we're going to dance? You go, yes. Can we agree that Tango B is something completely different, and here are the standards that we live by? Can everybody agree? And really what you're doing there is you're establishing norms and making agreements. And that's good in any organization. It's good in your family. You know, if your family can sit there around the refrigerator and go, can we make an agreement that we're not having hard conversations, we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Yeah, we all agree to that. You just stepped into something with courage, and you just are doing everything you can to control the culture of your household, the culture of your family. And all you're saying is, I care about the family. So all you're saying when you're going, I'm confused. I see a split. Let's have conversation about it, and let's come up with solutions, and let's come up with norms. Let's come up with agreements. And hey, if you're into Tango A and you're into the traditional form, be a leader in that group and go kill it. You know, and if you want to be in a Tango B, then go into that group and kill it. But those same skill sets are going to be used in both groups. And you know, there's an opportunity there, because the organization grows as a whole, and you're still maintaining something that you find and to value, and that's traditional tango. And that is very, very cool to say, hey, it's the same now as it was 400 years ago, and Tango B is taking a role in helping protect that. It's not this, it's this. Let's grow side by side together so that we can support each other. It's just a different paradigm shift, but we're used to this. You know, this takes more courage to move parallel through the world and protect each other is unfortunately a different paradigm for us. So that's why we have to use social emotional skills.
So, you know, I really like that kind of growing together, you know, because tango's a popular dance. It evolved by people bringing in different things and for it changing, you know. And what changed it a lot was, you know, dancers from Buenos Aires going out into the, you know, greater world, into Europe, into the States, and showing flashy moves. And really kind of re-energizing tango back in Buenos Aires as well.
Oh, right.
So, you know, it's this kind of feeding process. And just, you know, so that I can, you know, help you with some of the values as far as in tango goes, is we have codes. You know, we have certain codes, and they're unspoken a lot. And I've even had stories of people going to milongas and no one told them what codes they followed, and they stepped over those boundaries. And then other people after the fact would be like, well, we observe the codes here. We observe cabeceo, which is the, in order to get a dance, it's the, instead of asking verbally. And so people feel shamed by that.
Yeah.
So, you know, this sense of belonging, you know, since we're social beings, you know, there's, can you speak a little bit to the the profundity of belonging to something, and
Yeah.
how drastic and how detrimental shame and rejection can be, because we're
Right.
going to have those things occur. So
Yeah.
what I do on a personal level to deal with it myself, you know, but also in respect to other people. And
Right. Yeah. So there are two things there. Number one is belonging. We have to belong. Unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, you have to belong to something. You know, we see this with at-risk youth all the time. If you don't give them a community to belong to, they're going to go find their community. Now, is that a healthy community or not? It doesn't matter. You know, are they going to be gang banging and selling drugs? If we don't give them a better choice and a better community to step into, they will. So we have to belong to something. And, you know, understanding that, there are certain rules, and, you know, gangs do this, churches do this. Scale of good and bad, you know, it doesn't matter. We do kind of the same thing. And we expect, we have, I think, what I would call wrong or bad expectations. It's not so much that the expectations are bad, it's just that we kind of hold them and we get power from that. And that gives us the power to go, oh, gee, they don't know the codes, they're dumb. And that could be in the gang. You know, oh, he wore a red bandana, not a blue one. We're going to shun him until he changes his behavior. Instead of going, here are the expectations, and supporting those expectations to make sure they do it right. Because what we know about shame and blame is shaming and blaming does not change behavior. So what you're going to do is just push people away, you know? So, you know, maybe there's the concept of like, hey, if we value it, what are our core values? Hey, we have an orientation. If they haven't done traditional tango before, hey, maybe you do a 1 hour orientation explaining it. Then you have them watch the whole process. Now, you told me this process of glancing across the room at somebody, glancing back and never a word spoken, and this means this. Like, that's a hard thing to explain and to have somebody expect if they've never seen it before. So, you know, again, if you have those high expectations, you have to let people practice that. So to shame them before they have those skills, that's classic bad coach, bad teacher stuff that we've all experienced. You know, we've all been the dumb kid in the back who just missed one lesson and they didn't understand how to do it, and so they got shame and blame. Shame and blame builds resentment. Shame and blame, guilt and shame serve no purpose, none. They're only, all emotions have a positive healing aspect to them, and shame and guilt serve no purpose whatsoever. So if you have expectations for behavior, then you need to put structures in place to make that happen. An orientation, modeling the behavior. Watch Judah and watch Bill, the way they glance across the room at each other, that means they just said, yes, I want to dance with you. And then you go through all those, because it sounds to me like the social etiquette is minute. They're just tiny little mores, cultural mores that separate the difference between classic tango and this newer tango that's kind of arising. So, and that's just a classic story. What's the difference between the two? The untrained eye can't see a difference, but the people inside of it, they can see the difference. And so the irony that these people who love something are doing this, you know, when they have more in common than they do not in common, is a classic story. And you get through that with skills and structures like I'm talking about. Talk about expectations. You get somebody there not by shaming and guilting somebody, by giving them the skills to get there. And dance skills and social emotional skills are the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like in a class setting, you know, this should be part of the curriculum that the teacher has in
Right.
place to
Sure.
prepare people for the social atmosphere.
Right. Right.
So, say I'm at a dance, and whether, you know, I've seen someone not abide by the codes, right, a visitor or somebody else, you know, I think it would be helpful to have some language that would then not shame the person, you know, or say I'm on the dance floor and someone is holding me tightly and I can't move and it's uncomfortable. Instead of just kind of physically pushing away and getting this attitude and this hardness, what's some of the language that I could do that is gentler than telling the person you're hurting?
Yeah. What a great question. And I'm going to go right back to LCD. So if you tell somebody, or if you are just making like, you just push it, you're pushing them away, you're sending them a message, and that message is as strong as don't grab me too tight, you know. So when you push somebody away or you make a bad face, what happens is they go from being in their neocortex, where we kind of think highly, to going back into the reptilian brain, where we don't think at all. So your goal when you're having a conversation with somebody is to keep them in their neocortex. We do that by not shaming and blaming, but asking really good questions. So, you know, probably the appropriate thing to do is like finish the dance, go, hey, can I ask you a few questions? Step off the dance floor and stay with questions, and have an open body language, and step into it with your agreement, going, I'm going to listen to understand, I'm going to look for clarity, and I'm going to demystify it for this person. So can you have you been tangoed before? I have. Where was that at? Well, that was at Club X, and they have a new kind of tap tango. Okay. Do you know about our organization? No. Did you know that we are a more classically trained tango group? No, I didn't know that. Do you understand the etiquette and the codes around tango? So now you're not telling anybody like, you're not dancing tango, right? You're not doing this. You're asking them questions. When you ask people questions, you can't. It's hard. It's almost impossible to shame or blame anybody. So when you ask questions, blood goes to the neocortex, because we have to have our neocortex engaged to answer high-level questions. So you're really doing yourself a favor, and you're doing them a favor by asking questions. Hey, have you been here before? Have you seen traditional tango? Just start with big, broad questions about tango and go, did you, and as you move down through those questions, get more and more specific. Did you know some of the etiquette is like, you don't hold tightly? That's a 70s slow dance funk move. That's the stuff I love. Like, when you get in here, but that's not a part of the norms of this. And so you see, you start broad. Have you been here before? And then you work your way down to, have you ever seen traditional tango? Did you know this is traditional tango? Do you notice the differences? You know, did you see how he doesn't hold her as tightly? Did you feel how tightly you were holding me? Now you've just talked to this person about, and you've said to them in not too many words, like, yeah, holding me so tight ain't a good thing, but you did so in a really kind way. And chances are, if they're doing it wrong, it's because they don't know. And for us to expect somebody to know, that's really silly, but we do it all the time. You know, we kind of, through body language, push people away because, you know, he didn't do it right. And we don't have to say a word to shame and blame somebody and make somebody feel bad or feel guilty. And if you want to welcome new people into your communities, those are some skills that will help you get there. Are you interested in learning more about that? Would you like to attend our beginning orientation in class next Monday? Our dues are $25 a week. There's real opportunity here to use skills too. Yeah.
Those are very helpful, and they're useful everywhere. Yes, in
everyday life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Now I want to shift topics just slightly here. Is, you know, a lot of us we've come to Tango for whether it be stress release or connection or something to stimulate us in another way. You know, you talk a lot about having a bucket, right? And the empty of a bucket, or a bucket being too full.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of us have stressful days, excuse me, and we go to the Milonga and want to sort of let that go and enjoy the dance. And so part of the rejection is, if you cabaseo me, I have a choice to look away. And so essentially that's a no, right? And so tango can be looked at as being very snobbish because of that. Because sometimes, you know, you don't want to dance with that person, or you're looking for another person to dance with. And so to me, that's, and it's been explained that that's a protecting of your joy. And so I look at the bucket analogy that you use, and I'll let you explain it, as that protecting your joy and making sure that you're in a place where you can give instead of just causing yourself more stress.
Right. Yeah. So the bucket theory is a concept that we basically all have to take care of ourselves, socially and emotionally, by emptying our bucket. What we mean by that it is that we have daily stressors in our life, and we're born with stressors. And you know, when we were in you know, band communities, when we walked the earth for 100,000 years, we lived in really small communities, and we were a participating member of nature. And that meant that, hey, there was about 10% of our existence was this stressful situations where, well, where are we going to get food? Hey, is there a saber-tooth tiger chasing us, or something like that? Well, you would think like, well, we live in a modern world with modern conveniences. What we've done is we've built stressors into our life. So 20,000 years ago, we spent 10% of our existence in stress. We now have flipped that, and we're spending 90% of our existence in stress. And so there are things that, as stress, we look at the concept of stress as it fills your bucket, and you're carrying this bucket around. And if you don't empty that bucket and get rid of that stuff that's in there, when you explode, because your stress has to be released in some way, it releases in very unhealthy ways. We yell at people, we scream at people, we hit people, we shoot people, we do all kinds of really mean things. The idea is like, hey, let's relieve that stress. Let's relieve that by doing something healthy. And Tango can absolutely be one of those aspects that help you relieve stress. How do you know? Well, there are a number of keys to help you understand what it is you're doing in your life that's relieving stress. Do you lose track of time? If you lose track of time when you're going to Tango, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this, like, yeah, we're gonna have a dance. It is 3 hours, and 3 hours goes by, and you're like, there's no way it's been a 3-hour dance. We've all had the experience. So that's how we know we're doing something good that's emptying our bucket. Another thing, another kind of giveaway is that it's something that gives you an opportunity to get in a rhythm. Obviously, Tango fits into that concept of getting into rhythm. When you can get into sync and get into rhythm with somebody else, that's going to empty your bucket even more. That's, you know, what the Navajo would call medicine. That's medicine. Laughing is medicine. You're losing track of time because you're having fun. That's medicine. Um, another good way to tell that you're doing something that's really healthy for you is when you sigh. When you're walking out the door going, and you're thinking to yourself, your self-talk is like, oh, that was fun, you know? And what happens when we sigh? You can sigh for two reasons. You sigh because, not this crap again. And you can sigh because, oh, man, that was great. Talking Heads at Red Rock. Are you kidding me? Oh, my God, the big sigh. That's like weight coming off of your body. So a sigh is like somebody's adding weight, or a sigh is, was that great? So when you look at that sigh of relief, it's like there's weight being lifted off of your shoulders. So those are three really, really strong indicators. And here's something that happens when we get so close to something ideologically and emotional to the point that we're going to protect it. It could be causing more stress than it's absolute. You know, if you're not walking out of there, out of a dance, and you're not sighing the, oh, that was great. Wow, it might be time to look at something else. I had to walk away from fly fishing, which is something I adore. I love it, and it fills all of those things for me. I lose track of time. There's rhythm in it. The big sigh, those were all things. But the sigh turned into, there's too many people on the river. There's too many other people who have, my ideological and my emotional being started getting protective of something because I have an emotional attachment to it. And so I had to look at myself hard and find another way for me to release that. And I still fly fish because I saved fly fishing for myself. I do it less, and I tell myself when I go to do it, like, the other people aren't going to bother me. And I have a new release, and I play music now, and I'm real protective of that. And I feel lighter, and I sigh, and I smile, and I do all of those things that you do when you're relieving stress from something. So, and relieving stress in our society, any society, globally, except for like true Aboriginal cultures, you have to have something, because we're living in stress 90% of our lives, and that is not natural. So you have to take care of yourselves. And again, I can look at that as, that's an opportunity for Tongo to go, hey, let's demystify that for people and tell them they're going to feel better. Tell them they're going to live a healthier lifestyle, and tell them this is about relieving stress and making their life better, because that's true. That's not hyperbole in any sense of the word.
Yeah, and you know, spending some time in Buenos Aires, you know, it's a big city, and for me it was very, very stressful, you know, because I come from a small town as well. And so, you know, you really get the sense that going to the Milonga is this place where you just get to let it go and release that and forget about all those stresses, you know. And I mean, learning is a stress as well. You know,
It
and
is.
always in a state where we can learn. So
Yeah.
having other things to empty that bucket in order to put ourselves into a place where we can learn is really important.
Yeah. And I would not put all, that's a great point. And to piggyback on that, to put all your eggs in one stress relieving basket isn't good either. And if you have only Tongo, I would find at least 2 or 3 other things that is a release for you, because if you slowly get these ideological and these emotional attachments to things, if that happens, you're just stepping from stress into more stress. And sometimes we're so close to ourselves, that's the hardest relationship to have, is with self. So as you step into that, you slowly become this ideologically and emotionally attached to something. And I was getting to the point that I hated going fly fishing. Now think about that. I love fly fishing, and I didn't want to go. And when did that happen? I can't look back in the rearview mirror and go, I don't know when that happened. So that's a great point. And there's a light and a dark side to everything. You can love something too much. You can love something to death. So, spread your bucket emptying around, because when the bucket spills, it spills on you first, and it spills on those closest to you first.
And I would say with that is, going to the Milonga is certainly an emptying of bucket, but I have to put my mind in the right place. Like I may not have all the most fantastic dances that allow me to disappear. I may just be going for social, engagement and just to be there with my community. And so, in a state where I may not have a full empty bucket, I will have to protect at least myself and them from my exploding, if that were to be the case, by saying no, and
Right.
and dancing with those people that I feel can give me that.
Absolutely. Those are good. Clear boundaries are good in all aspects of your life, especially those things that help you relieve stress and are integral to you being healthy. It's okay to say no. Like, yeah.
And,
Hey, go do some work and come back in 6 months, and I'd love to dance with you. Yeah. That's okay.
And hopefully that creates, a wanting to either grow or understand another person. Because of course we can take it personally.
Sure.
Someone says no to me and I take it personally. And I could just think that they're a snob, but it's important to then again put yourself in their shoes and go, okay, well, maybe they just don't have it to give, or maybe there's something else going on.
Yeah, as the receiver of that message, but to also, again, to be able to soft that blow, go, do you have a deep understanding of traditional tango? Do you know what that's like? And to explain that through questions, going, and it's something, if you can tell them, what's your, hey, I'm a world-class tennis player. Okay. Do you want to play tennis with a 10-year-old? No. Why? I don't get a workout. That's not fun for me. There's no company. Like, it's the same thing with me and tango. So we're always questions and relating things to their world is called empathy. It's something we all lack. So again, good questions, empathy. People will understand, especially if you relate it to their world. What are you an expert at? What do you do that keeps you healthy and really makes you feel really good? Yeah, I'm a professional bike rider. Cool. Do you want to take my son next weekend on your 50-mile ride? He's got a trike. Are you good with that? Of course, he's like, no, I need to get my 50 miles.
Well, this was awesome, Stan. We're kind of coming to the end. Are there any little last tidbits that you would offer to a community, that maybe seem obvious, but that are missing? You've touched on many things. So I don't know if there's one last little kind of pieces that you'd like to give to us.
Yeah, I'll go back to one of the first things I said, which is, and I'll just use it to drive home, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, if you value it, you protect it. If you value tango, then protect it, and you do so with good, from the 60,000 foot view, with a good mission and vision and core values. Mission and vision is where we're going. Core values are how are we going to treat each other on this road to where we're going. Make those nice, good, and strong, and then give people the skills, whether they're tango skills or emotional intelligence skills, to protect the culture within that. I look at it as a shell, the policy and the core values and stuff kind of give people a shelter and a place to be. It's like the Milonga, it's like the place where it's happening. It's like it's safe there. There are borders, it's happening within the lights, and it's happening where the music is, and I feel safe and I feel warm there. Well, how safe would you feel if someone there calling people names? Obviously that's not going to feel good. So demystify and speak to tension. That takes courage. It's not an easy thing to do. And use skills, ask questions, listen to understand, look for clarity, and demystify. Give people really good information. And it might be information you don't have too. But yeah, if you love it and you value it, then protect it. And those are the two ways that I really know how to protect things.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And
Oh, this has been great.
where would you send people to, whether it be learn about you and what you do with HAP, or to learn about social emotional intelligence?
Well, yeah, our organization is haptraining.com. It's www.haptraining.com. Brian and I, who wrote the curriculum, are in the middle of, or actually not in the middle, we're beginning the process of writing a book, because one of the biggest requests we get is, how do we read and get what you guys do in the curriculum? And it doesn't exist out there. The closest thing would be Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence and Emotional Intelligence 2.0. But what we've done is build, this is a culmination of thousands and tens of thousands of hours of practice and reading and research and other people's research. That there's no one place where you can really read and understand what we do. And so we're writing a book, because that's the number one question we get at the end of the training is, how do I get a book so I can share this with X? So after 8 years of hearing, how do we, we've got the curriculum to the point that we can now start working on the book. That essentially is what's going on. So,
awesome. I look forward to it.
Probably 9 or 10 months away from a book release. So,
All right.
yeah, call me up anytime. You know, I'm ready to talk about anything. And we have for organizations that want to reach out and look for assistance, number one, we're easy to get a hold of. We travel everywhere. We've been successful with everyone. And we have a tab at the upper top of our website that's, you can sign up for a free seminar. So first one's free. It's like crack. First one's free.
Well, thank you so much. This was just fabulous. As always,
Cool.
a pleasure to see your face and to have a chance to chat with you, Stan. And social emotional intelligence is just like Tango, where it's a practice. There's never perfection. We're never going to get there.
Yep. This has been so much fun for me. Thanks so much, Judah.
My pleasure.
Good luck with your thing.
Thank you.
Okay. See ya.